What if the most powerful leadership secrets in history were never taught in any business school, because the people who knew them were too busy running empires from the shadows? What if the boardroom strategies that built Fortune 500 companies were first perfected not in corporate America, but in the back rooms of the most feared criminal organizations the world has ever known? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 5 shocking life hacks inspired by Mafia psychology, Mafia negotiation, and Mafia loyalty that could change the way you work, the way you lead, and the way you win. And before you click away, no, we're not telling you to do anything illegal. We're telling you to think like a boss. Because after watching this, you'll never look at your office the same way again. Picture this. A man in a perfectly tailored Italian suit sits behind a massive mahogany desk. 2 assistants flank him on either side. The room is silent. He folds his hands slowly, nods once, and the entire operation shifts. Now, here's the wild part. Swap the mahogany desk for a glass-walled corner office. Swap the crew for a management team, and you have described nearly every powerful CEO you have ever read about. This is not a coincidence. The organizational structure of the Italian-American Mafia, the ranks, the loyalty systems, the chain of command, the negotiation tactics, mirrors modern corporate hierarchy almost perfectly. A 2018 study in the Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization found that criminal organizations like the Sicilian Mafia operated with sophisticated management systems involving clear performance incentives, territorial monopolies, and accountability, structures that any MBA student would recognize immediately. The Mafia just figured it out decades before McKinsey put it in a PowerPoint. Let's start at the bottom, because every empire is built from the ground up. In the Mafia, a new recruit begins as an associate, not yet trusted, not yet a full member, completely unproven. Their job is to show up, do the dirty work, and demonstrate through action, not words, that they belong. They run errands. They handle the grunt tasks. They are being watched constantly. Now, if you just felt a chill of recognition, that's because you've lived this. That's called being an intern. And here's the first insight that most people completely miss. The professionals who rise fastest from the bottom are never the ones who complain about small tasks. They are the ones who treat every small task as an audition. The Mafia didn't hand trust to anyone who asked for it. They observed, they waited, they tested, and the people who handled the small things with precision and discretion were the ones who got brought inside. If you're early in your career right now, understand this. The coffee you make, the report you file, the deadline you hit without being reminded. Every single one of them is a loyalty test. Pass enough of them, and the doors open. Fail. Them, and no amount of talent saves you. Move up one level, and you find the soldier, the made man, the trusted operator who has already proven himself and now executes the real work of the organization. He takes orders from above, manages tensions from below, and delivers results without making excuses. Sound familiar? That's your middle manager. The most thankless, highest pressure role in any organization, corporate or criminal. And here is what the Mafia teaches us about surviving in the middle. Never, under any circumstances, make your leadership look incompetent in public. Disputes go up the chain quietly and privately. Disagreements are handled behind closed doors. In the meeting, in the presentation, in front of clients, in front of peers, you are unified. This isn't weakness or blind obedience. It is strategic intelligence of the highest order. The managers who master this become the ones leadership trusts with bigger responsibility because they demonstrate that they make the team stronger instead of fracturing it. The ones who air grievances publicly, who throw their boss under the bus in group settings, who position themselves as the smarter alternative. They feel clever for about 3 weeks before their career quietly stops moving forward. Climb 1. More level, and you meet the capo, the department head, the director, the person responsible for an entire crew of soldiers. In the Mafia, a capo's success was measured entirely by the performance and loyalty of the people beneath him. If his crew delivered, he rose. If his crew failed, he answered for it personally. If his crew was disloyal, he was the one who paid the price. This is the most important management lesson that corporate training programs almost never teach directly. Your power as a leader is not measured by your own individual output. It is measured by what your team produces under your direction. The capo who built genuine loyalty, who protected his crew, invested in them, celebrated their wins, and handled their mistakes privately, had soldiers who were willing to go to extraordinary lengths for him. The capo who ruled through fear and kept his crew feeling expendable, had soldiers who were quietly looking for the exit. Translate that directly to your department. Invest in your team's growth. Defend them. When they make honest mistakes, give them credit publicly and correct them privately. The team that is genuinely loyal to their leader performs at a level that politics and incentives alone can never manufacture. And then there is the boss, the top of the entire structure, the CEO of the criminal enterprise. And here is the twist that almost nobody expects. The most powerful mafia bosses in history were almost never the loudest people in the room. By the time you reach the top, your job is no longer to do. It is to decide. It is to hold vision, manage alliances, allocate trust, and position yourself as the irreplaceable center of gravity around which everything else orbits. The greatest mob bosses spoke rarely. They listened constantly. When they did speak, every word landed with weight because words were not wasted. The most effective CEOs in modern corporate history operate the same way. They build systems. They cultivate loyalty at every level of the organization. They position themselves not as the loudest voice, but as the most essential one. The question isn't how loud you are. The question is, what happens to the operation if you disappear? If the answer is chaos, you've built something real. If the answer is that things mostly continue without you, you haven't. Now let's get into the hacks, because this is where your corporate life actually changes. Hack number 1 comes straight out of every serious negotiation the Mafia ever ran, and it is shockingly simple. Never, ever show desperation. The golden rule of Mafia negotiation was this: whoever needs the deal more, loses the deal. Think about the last time you went into a salary conversation. Were you fidgeting? Were you over-explaining? Were you front-loading justifications before the other person even responded? If so, you signaled that you needed the yes more than they did, and you handed them the leverage. The Mafia-inspired approach works in 3 steps. First, know your walk-away number before you sit down. The Don never entered a conversation without knowing exactly what he'd accept and exactly at what point he would stand up, thank the other party, and
Second,
leave.
after making your ask,
Second,
stop talking.
after making
that
your
first
ask,
person to fill
stop
silence
talking.
usually concedes. Silence is not all.
First person to fill silence usually concedes. Silence is not awkward. Silence is pressure. Get comfortable with it. Third, make the other side feel like they won. The most skilled negotiators never
deal
leave
is
their
tough, but I
counterpart
see your
feeling
point.
defeated.
We both gain.
They
A fair
leave them
outcome.
feeling
Agreed.
like they
This
got
works
a
for us.
great
Good.
outcome,
It's settled.
while quietly securing the better end of the arrangement for themselves. Practice this in your next performance review. You will be startled by how quickly the dynamic shifts.
Hack number 2 is the one that requires the most honesty
and
the most courage to implement.
And the most courage to implement.
Think carefully before you answer this.
Think carefully
if your
before
boss
you
turned
answer
against
this.
you
If your boss turned against you tomorrow,
which of your colleagues
would actually have your back?
not who you
Not
think
who
would,
you think would.
not who seems friendly
Not
in the
who
lunchroom,
seems friendly in the lunchroom.
who would genuinely
stand up for you when you're not in the room. The Mafia had a concept called the loyalty test. Before trusting anyone with sensitive information, before bringing them deeper into the circle of real operations, they would test loyalty in small, quiet ways. They'd share a partial truth and observe what was done with it. They'd assign a low-stakes task and watch whether it was handled with discretion. In your corporate world, this translates to information hygiene, one of the most powerful and underused tools available to any professional. Not everyone in your office deserves access to your real ambitions, your real frustrations, or your real plans. The colleague who gossips to you about others is also gossiping about you to others. Build your inner circle deliberately and slowly. Test trust in small increments before expanding it. One truly loyal ally, someone who tells you the truth, protects your reputation when you're absent, and supports you when the pressure is on, is worth more than 20 casual office friendships. Hack number 3 is one that most people
We intellectually understand the value of patience and a long-term mindset, but almost nobody consistently practices it because it requires patience and a long-term mindset that our instant gratification culture undermines.
Gratification wiring fights against. The principle is this: give before you take. In the Mafia, the most politically powerful figures built their influence not primarily through fear, but through obligation. The Don did favors. He helped local businesses, smoothed over disputes, made introductions, solved problems. By the time he needed something, the debt was already established. Nobody had to be threatened because they already felt the weight of what they owed. The corporate version of this is called strategic generosity, and it is one of the most powerful political tools available in any organization. Help colleagues before you need anything from them. Share information that benefits others. Make introductions that cost you nothing
but matter enormously
to the recipient.
Recommend teammates for opportunities.
Recommend teammates for opportunities, even when there's no direct benefit to you. Do this consistently for 6 months, and you will have built a network of genuine allies that no LinkedIn Premium subscription can replicate. Then, when you need support for a promotion push, for political backing on a project, for someone to speak well of you in a room you're not invited to,
you won't have to ask
twice.
The social capital is already
The social
banked.
capital is already banked.
Hack number 4 requires a quick, important disclaimer. We are absolutely not talking about anything illegal, and anyone who applies these ideas in unethical ways has missed the entire point. What we are talking about is what the most financially sophisticated mafia bosses understood about money that most salaried professionals never figure out until it's too late. Visible wealth is a target. Salary is not security. The smartest mob, bosses, lived modestly on the surface while quietly building real wealth through legitimate business ownership. Restaurants, construction companies, real estate. They understood that wealth diversification wasn't a luxury. It was survival. They built buffers that gave them the freedom to make choices from a position of strength rather than desperation. The corporate translation is direct and urgent. Stop chasing only salary and start chasing ownership and equity. Stop spending every raise and start investing a meaningful portion of every income increase. Build financial reserves that give you the one thing that changes every professional dynamic you will ever face: optionality. The freedom to say no to a toxic opportunity. The freedom to walk away from a bad situation without terror driving the decision. The freedom to take calculated risks, because your survival doesn't depend on the next paycheck. Financial security is leverage. It is the most underrated power move in corporate life. Hack number 5 is the one you've been waiting for, and it genuinely has the potential to accelerate your career faster than any certification, networking event, or performance review cycle. The Mafia's ultimate power move was called making yourself the solution to the problem that nobody else could solve. The boss didn't just control territory. He positioned himself as the irreplaceable mediator, the essential problem solver, the one person whose involvement guaranteed resolution when nothing else would. Disputes that bled for years ended when the boss sat down at the table. Here is your 3-step corporate version. First, identify the one critical, chronic, ugly problem in your organization that everyone complains about and nobody tackles. Not the glamorous initiative with executive visibility. The broken process, the cross-functional conflict, the systemic inefficiency that has been annoying everyone for 2 years and keeps falling off the priority list. That problem is your opportunity. Second, become the person who actually solves it. Raise your hand. Study it deeply. Build a solution. Test it. Implement it. And and own the result. Third, make the solution part of your professional brand, not through bragging, but through documentation, through referencing it in strategy, discussions, through mentoring others on the approach you developed. The professional who solves the problem nobody else will touch becomes indispensable. Indispensable professionals get promoted when times are good and protected when times are hard. Become the solution. That is how you become the boss. Now let's talk about a man who lived all of this from both sides and whose story carries the most important warning in this entire video. Michael Franzese was one of the most powerful members of the Colombo crime family in New York. At his peak in the 1980s, he was generating an estimated $8 million per week through a gasoline tax scheme, making him one of the wealthiest organized crime figures in American history. Fortune magazine listed him alongside Al Capone as one of the most financially successful mobsters ever documented. He had the